My name's Colby Smith, and I want to ask you a question. Why is it I feel this guilt all the time? Why is it I feel it all the time? If I have every day I get in the shower, every day I get in the shower and I turn on a hot shower and I think, oh, this is so good. And then every day I think, how lucky am I to be able to be having a hot shower? How many people in the world, out of the 8.5 billion whatever people there are in the world, how many of those people have never had a hot shower? I'd say, there's a good billion people on this planet that have probably never had a hot shower. And I go down to Tesco's and I buy this shit processed food, and I feel bad for shoveling this fast food in me all the time. And then I think, how many people, don't have the luxury to just go to a shop. I've never gone without food in my life. There's never been a point in my life where I've had to go hungry other than through my own choice. I feel this guilt all the time. Why is it, I was having nightmares about being trapped in Gaza City, about being locked down and chased around. I was having nightmares of being in Syria, of being in Aleppo, being chased around by masked gunmen. Why was I having these nightmares? Why was it on fireworks night when I heard all these explosions going off in my head? It just reminded me, it just made me feel it made me feel sad for the people that have real explosions going on over their heads, not just on one day a week, not pretty explosions, violent explosions. Why do I feel this guilt? Every time I turn on my light switch, I feel like I'm destroying some part of a rainforest somewhere with the energy that I'm using up, or every time I eat something, I feel the factory farming that's gone through, the land that's been ravaged to get this food to my plate. All the time I feel this guilt, this consciousness telling me, you're doing the wrong thing. Everything, this whole society, I cannot do anything and keep a clean conscience. Even if I pay my taxes, I'm yeah, fair enough. Some of that probably goes towards teaching kids, curing cancer. I look at people who are coming out of NHS hospitals and, my money's paid for that. It makes me feel good. But then at the same time, my money's going towards wars and bombs and, enslaving the rest of the world under this British and American regime. It doesn't make me feel, I can't. It's what I want to change. And, the destruction of the planet. Human beings, if we're going to fuck ourselves over, if we're going to overpopulate and get disease, or, kill ourselves through obesity and bad diets in the developed world, or, starve, whatever, wars, if we're going to wipe ourselves out, at least let's not take the fucking planet, the entire ecosystem with us. That's what we're doing. Our greed is what is it they say, a man's reach exceeds his grasp exceeds his reach. We want too much. There's a radical change of behaviour has got to happen for human beings to survive another 3 centuries, to survive another millennium. It's going to be severe. Do you think we're going to be living consuming like this in 1,000 years time? You think we're still going to be driving around in petrol cars in 1,000 years time? Do you think we're going to be worshipping the same gods in 1,000 years time? The same governments, the same societal controls and rules. Do you think they're going to apply in 1,000 years time? Hell no. And the point is, we need to get there. We need to get to that point. And at the minute, we're digging ourselves into the ground. And the only way we can change this is through radical behaviour change. Radical behaviour change. And people can't change their behaviour on their own. It needs to come, there needs to be not an order, but, not a directive. But there needs to, people need to be shown the evidence. This is what's going to happen if we carry on along this trajectory. This is where we're heading. At the minute, our governments talk of the future. They just talk of 4 years' time when you're going to be, your pay is going to be a little bit more, or you're going to have a better hospital in your area. There's longer term goals. The only way we can get to these longer term goals is by obliterating the political system, obliterating it. The destruction of Parliament. just turn it in, don't destroy it, just make it a museum, like a tourist attraction, just completely open it up, historical, you know, you can talk about all the shit, the corruption, you know, and lies that went on there, and you know, the backdoor deals, you know, that would draw in loads of tourists. Just build a new, like, political arena. You know, there needs to be, like, wholesale change, you know, a democratic revolution, because that's the only way we're going to survive as a species, not as a country, not as like an ideological system. As a species, the only way we're going to change, survive, is through radical behaviour change. Like the whole thing, it needs to go. You know, these people, they're not our leaders, they're not our rulers. You know, they do not rule. Like when the king and queen were in charge of our country, you know, they were a ruler. They ruled, you know, they said this and it happened. That's not how it works anymore, but we're still following the same system. We still call them our leaders, our rulers. Even I call them our leaders. You know, they don't lead us. Do they lead by example? Do you see them doing the things that they say that we should do, working hard, you know, paying our taxes, you know, buying houses, modest houses, and working until we're 70 and then retiring on a state pension? Do they do those things? No, they don't do those things. So, you know, they're not leaders and they're not rulers. They are representatives. They are people that we have chosen to represent us. You know, not to represent themselves. We haven't chosen them to be like, you're the man in charge now. We're in charge. They're just doing our will. And that message, you know, that has become confused somewhere along the line. They're not doing our will. You know, what they do is they pitch laws to us. Or, you know, well, that's the ones that they tell us about. Some of them they just sneak through on the sly. But, you know, with the manifesto, with the elections, you know, they tell us these laws, you know, and they pitch them and they try and convince us this is the right thing to do. The government says we're passing this law next week. And then, you know, the news tells us this is the right thing because of this. This bad thing happens, this good thing happens, we want this law. And, you know, we have to either like it and carry on voting for them, or don't like it and vote somewhere else. You know, that's not how it should work. You know, they're our representatives. We, the people, should come together away from political parties, should come together and decide. And our representatives should then go and just make that law. You know, if the people say it, you know, your MP is going up to London, like every week, every day, you know, voting on things that he or she has no idea about. You know, do you think that your MP, every time your MP votes, do you think that he or she is voting? You know, do you think that they've canvassed their constituents on that subject and got back like an overall consensus and then gone with that? No, they've gone with their gut, or they've gone with the party whip. 9 times out of 10, they've gone with the party whip. You know, it's like this. It's just like, it's completely backwards. You know, instead of these like candidates get parachuted into constituencies, they turn up and they say, these are the laws that I'm going to campaign with. Will you agree with me or not? That's not the way it should be. You know, these people should come to us and say, I will go to Parliament and represent you. What do you want me to say? You know, blank canvas. You can fill in the rest. I'll just go up there and say it. You know, they're not their own. You know, member of Parliament. That name needs to go. Member of Parliament. You know, it makes it sound like, you know, once you've reached that high echelon, you become a member of this establishment, this Parliament. You know, it makes them sound like they've reached a higher. No, they're not. They're just human beings talking about things that other human beings want to happen, or at least so it should be. But, you know, it's not. That's not the way it is. You know, something's got severely mixed up along the way, like a two-party system. And, like, people can say, oh, but there's UKIP, there's the Lib Dems, there's Greens. It's not a two-party system, but look, it's a two-party system. Look at the leader of the House, the leader of the Great Britain has come from one of two parties in my lifetime, in probably everyone's lifetime that is alive. It doesn't work. You know, when they're peddling the same views, slightly nuanced, different versions of the same views. You know, UKIP, Labour, Lib Dems, you know, they're all operating within a narrow, tiny little strand of opinion, you know, and they stick within that, and anything outside of that, you know, that's radical, that's extreme, you know, that's leftist, that's far right. You know, it's, you know, we need a democratic revolution, you know, a grassroots movement, like Occupy, you know, like UK Uncut, to come up and just, you know, people have got it in them to make these decisions, you know. Politicians talk with this language, this kind of jargon, you know, it separates you, it creates a barrier in between your mode of thinking and what you perceive their mode of thinking to be. You think, you know, how could I ever do that? How could I ever, like, you know, represent people? How could I ever be in a council and, like, talk about things? But, you know, they're just things that, you know, your life, you have a more, your life has more input, should have more input in the parliament than the life of the MP, of like a rich MP who's, you know, you're the average man on the street, you, me, we are the people, it's our nation, it's not their nation, you know, they just got voted in, you know, they don't own it, they don't rule it, it's our nation, it's everyone's, you know, and, you know, people say, oh, you know, they make the law. We make the law, you know, we give them a mandate to operate. Like, making a change, people say, you know, what's the point of protesting? You know, you've been given, like, you've got, they say, you know, you've got more than what a lot of people have, which is the right, the chance to go to a ballot box and make a decision. And yeah, I do enjoy the privilege that we have here. I think it's definitely a good thing. But, you know, when it's not being used the correct way, it's a terrible thing. And I will use the ballot box, but I'll also use, like, my voice. I'll use my feet, I'll use my body to protest, you know, to make a change, to, like, take direct action. You know, civil unrest, you know, it's you know, it's worked. It's people that say it doesn't work. It's worked for a lot of people, you know. Power doesn't just give up power. You know, you can't just ask for power, you have to demand it off of them. You know, you've got to go up there in their face and tell them, we want change right fucking now. You know, they're not just going to hand it over on a plate. You know, Vodafone aren't going to wake up tomorrow morning and just be like, okay, you can have your £30 billion worth of tax back. You know, these arms companies aren't going to just wake up tomorrow morning and say, you know, we're going to stop selling arms to Israel. It's not going to work like that. We need to, like, these things, we need to demand. Thank you very much for watching.